Thank you. So most of what I'll be reviewing is how to actually upload your photos. And then Susan will go over what those photos should look like. But just to give you an overall view of what the auction will be, just some of the basic logistics is we're going to try to do the sale starting on Friday, July 31st at 9 a.m. with lots beginning to close at 6:00 p.m. that same Friday. Each lot is going to close about 1.5 minutes apart. If there is a bid placed within the last 30 seconds of all lots will extend 1 minute. There will be minimum bids and minimum bid increments. Steers will have a $750 minimum bid with $50 increments. Swines will have a minimum bid of $500 and $25 bid increments. Lambs and goats will be $300 minimum bid, and then their increments will increase by $25. When buyers go to bid, they will be prompted immediately for a destination. And the 4 destinations that are pre-selected for a drop-down for them to select from are buyers will take possession of the animal. They can donate 50% to the 4-H Foundation and 50% to the FFA Foundation, or they can donate to the 4-H Foundation, or they can donate to the FFA Foundation. This is what an auction site will look like, just to give you just a brief glimpse that you'll see all the kids' lots. You can click up here to narrow for specific kids who haven't been bid on, specific species, that would be your division in our case. And then when they click on it, it'll have, get out of the filter for you. When you click on it, that's when we're gonna see your photos. And that we wanna see the best part of your animal. Susan will go more on that, but just to show you what it would look like on our site. Go through the photos and then it'll have a brief video. All of how to do that and information to help your buyer is on our website. If you go to DelawareStateFair.com and click on the buyer pre-registration, view details, you'll be brought to the Junior Livestock auction page that we've created. There are the buyer pre-registration, which I will review in a second. There are the buyer instructions, how to upload your market animal as a PDF of step-by-step instructions, our Junior Livestock auction rules and regulations, as well as the buyback policy that Kristen will review later. So our instructions are a great tool for you for when you're trying to solicit buyers. They show them exactly what pre-registration will look like for them, which we highly encourage. And please make sure when you're talking to your buyers that you tell them when they input their information to input a cell phone. A cell phone and an email is very important because as they're processing the auction, if they get outbid at any time, they will get a text message notification. And if it's a landline, they won't receive it. It'll show them what's the difference between a bid and an add-on and how that will work. The whole auction process, as well as what to do if you've won, how to make payment, which will still be run through the 4-H Foundation. It'll even show them exactly step by step of what it would look like to bid so they can get a little bit of an idea. One of the main reasons we're starting at 9 and not starting to close lots is 6 is to give them some time to get familiar with the auction website before serious bidding starts to happen. Let's see. Here's buyer pre-registration. If they ask you at any point, it's step by step, but it's super simple. All they are doing is select, looks like we have buyers even already starting, so that's great, is they just select I'm a new buyer and they click register. And then they just put in this very basic information. The buyer name is the company. So make sure you emphasize that the buyer name is the company and the buyer contact is the person who is representing that company. Now for how to upload. So you're gonna go back to the ShowWorks page like you did when you first entered your entries. You can still find that the same way on the Delaware State Fair page. I haven't taken any of those click here online entries to enter buttons are all still on the website. So if you did it traditionally through a desktop, through this portal, you'll just hit sign in, choose that you're an exhibitor, undo, say that you've previously registered, and input your password. If you have not, if you did it through ShowWorks Passport, what you'll do differently is you'll still come to this page and click sign in, but instead of being an exhibitor, you're going to choose I'm a passport. And then you would type in the username and click I've already have a passport and do your password. So we're just going to do this part because this is probably a lot of you guys are use the password as we encourage. And I know that one gets a little funky. So once you've logged in, once you have logged in, you want to verify your information is correct. So after you're logged in, the only way back to get to our page is to click home. Well, you'll click the one register button. If you signed in traditionally, once you signed in, you would have clicked the one register button and you'll just verify your information just like you would if you were making an entry. Once you're on this page, you can go into your past transactions, and that's where the new steps come in to how to upload your photo.
Hey, Caitlin, we have a question from Mr. Kraus asking about if an individual is buying and is not affiliated with a company, they can leave that field blank, correct? About the
Not
company
blank,
field.
they would just, not blank, they would just put their name in both places. Because as you saw, anything with a blue star asterisk is a required field. So the buyer name, if it's not a company, would be that person. Okay. So you're going to go to your past transactions and you'll see a little upload files button. When you click on that, that's how you're going to get to the screen to start uploading all of your pictures and your video. So you'll see photo 1, 2, 3, and video. Excuse me. In the entry description, we need you to put in the Delaware State Fair tag ID that you got during tagging day. This is very important. We know some of you guys tag more than the 2 animals than you can actually show. So just pick the 2 you most likely think you're going to use for fair time. It's okay if you don't use those 2. We just ask for any additional animals than the 2 species, because that's all that's technically entered in ShowWorks, that you email Delaware's, well, you can email my email or Premium's, you both found on the website, with your photos and videos with the description of your Delaware State Fair tag ID number so we can switch those out. So for right now, you're going to pick your 2 that you most likely think you're going to use, and then email Caitlin at thestatefair.net or premiums@thestatefair.net with any additional photos beyond the 2 that you're eligible to enter. So after you put your Delaware State Fair tag ID, you're going to hit choose file. We're just going to use one of the photos we have uploaded from our photography exhibitors I've helped. And then you're going to, once you see it's blinking, it's not actually uploaded. You can see a preview of your image and notice that preview is on top of it. If we just logged out now, it's as if you did nothing. You want to make sure that after you select your image, you click upload. Once you get that upload complete, that image is there. And you will continue that for all of them. So select your image, click upload, upload complete. Select your image, click upload, upload complete. I don't think I have any videos that I can add on. Once you're complete, for people who have 2 market classes, this would say next, and you would just select the next. It would confirm you're ready to go to the next, and it'll go to your next set of pictures that you can add for your next animal. If you only have one, all you have to do is select done, and you've completed that process. That is all on uploading your photos.
So Caitlin, can we go back? We have one follow-up question about
Sure.
that process when a buyer registers, and you indicated that they should put their individual name in as the contact.
Yes.
And so how do they know that they put their own name in there? Is that explained in the directions somewhere?
It is in the buyer instructions. Yes. A blue asterisk denotes a required field. Please enter all of your information. The buyer name is your company name, and the buyer contact is the point of contact.
Great.
And the person making the bids on behalf of the company.
And this leads right into the next question that we just received in the chat box, which says, can someone make a step-by-step explanation on how this works for our kids to mail with their letters to their buyers? And so this document that you're seeing right now that Caitlin's sharing is available on that livestock page, livestock auction page of the Delaware State Fair website. And it's hyperlinked, and you can download it and print it and send it or personally deliver it to your potential buyers. So that's on that resource page for everyone to access. Are there any other questions directly related to the process of the auction and uploading your photos before we move on to our next part that we're going to talk about actually taking those photos and how we can put our animals and our exhibitors in their best light? Do you have to upload the pictures for the animal at the same time? So I think if I'm interpreting that question correctly, it's asking if I could maybe do one animal at a time. Can I return to that screen at a later date and do maybe 2 lambs the first time and 2 pigs another day? Or do I have to upload all of my animals at one sitting?
So if you have multiple, once you've clicked that next button and gone to the next screen, you can exit out. So your first animal is saved since you clicked the upload files button. Those are already have been sent to me. You can still change them if you re-upload a new picture and re-upload a file up until the deadline date. And that's something we forgot to pinpoint is when exactly you have to have these in by. And I believe it was July 10th by 5 p.m. Yes, July 10th by 5 p.m. So you have until then to go in and put them in individually. You can put them in and change them. They just have to be in by July 10th or you'll have a blank image.
Yeah, I think that's really important to stress, that you have an obligation as an exhibitor or parents or guardians, whoever's responsible for your project. You really need to meet that July 10th deadline. We don't want anyone to go to auction with no photos. So that's your responsibility and your obligation to meet that deadline. And then if for some reason you submitted photos of 2 animals and you had, say, a 3rd lamb tagged, and you end up showing that 3rd lamb in lieu of one of the 2 that you submitted photos on, if you've already emailed those photos to the premiums department, they can swap those photos out for you before the auction platform goes live. But we won't be chasing people down to make sure they have photos. That's something that you need to be sure that you have done and taken care of. So if there are no more questions related to the auction process, what your obligations are, I'm going to talk a little bit about, another question just came in. Are all animals being auctioned or just the top 2 or 3? So that ultimately becomes the decision of the Junior Livestock Auction Committee, which is comprised of multiple fair board members. Typically, the general rule of thumb, Sydney, has been that it's the top 30% of what is shown. So we can't make a decision yet on what that will look like, whether that's the top 2 or the top 3 or the top 4. Sometimes in the case of swine, we need to wait until animals have weighed in and classes are broken to be able to make that final determination. But the plan is to follow the same process that we always have in the past for that. So with that, I'm going to share my screen with just some slides about how to take the best photos of your animals, because there we go. So I do have to credit my colleagues at Penn State. I've borrowed and adapted this presentation from them. Some of my livestock colleagues there that have created this, but I would imagine that most people are probably going to be taking photos with their smartphones. If some of you are going to be using a single lens digital camera, then there are some other tips and tricks that I can share with you individually, but I would imagine that most people are using their smartphones. If you have the option of using a tripod for that smartphone, that's even better. I know not everyone has that, but they do make smartphone clips for tripods, and that can help make your image more stable and more crisp. Of course, make sure that your lenses on your phones or your cameras are clean and free of dust and dirt. And then, you know, we've already gone over this, but knowing how your images need to be saved and submitted. So what format, how do they need to be named as they're uploaded? What kind of information do you need to include? For instance, those ear tag numbers that are so important. Make sure you save a copy for yourself as well, so that if something happens, you still have another copy. Preparing to take your images. So this is really important. Make sure you have a plan in advance. Know your animal. Know how they look their best. What kinds of characteristics you want to highlight and what you might want to maybe minimize in them, just like you would for showmanship in the show ring. So also make sure that you and your photographer, whoever's taking pictures for you, are you've communicated your plans, you're on the same page. You need to know which way to orient your photos, so that we typically want those to be in a landscape format. So turning your cell phone, your smartphone sideways. Make sure that you have a little bit of patience with each other and that you can talk to each other. I know sometimes this can get stressful as a family trying to get these photos just right. Know your property and where you have a level place that looks good, that's clean and neat and picked up, so that you can take and stage these photos properly. So presentation is still crucial, I think. This is an auction, and while you're taking these photos at home, it still is the Delaware State Fair Junior Livestock Auction. Again, looking at your animals and knowing them. What do you want to highlight? What are the flaws? So you want to be able to show that animal in their best possible light. So give a little thought to your photo area and your background that you're going to be using to stage these photos, because this is now your auction ring. So you need to put yourself in a position where you're presenting yourself well. Paying attention to the details, as always, are very, very critical, and they can make a big difference. So we don't want to have objects or debris in the background that can be distracting or take away from your animal. So you want a clean, crisp background, and you want to make sure that people and other animals, dogs, pets, aren't in the background as well. So we want to make sure our animals are clean. You can see this photo is a great example of some one do and maybe 3 do nots. So this bull, he's very dirty. He certainly doesn't look his best. He's presented on a surface that really isn't ideal, or it doesn't have much eye appeal. It's just plain dirt. There's a lot of stuff going on in the background, farm equipment, fertilizer tanks, all kinds of things. So you really need to pay attention to these types of details as you're staging your photographs. So a little bit more on your area or your background. It would be preferable to do that on recently mowed lawn or even a clean bedded area. So attractive, clean areas are pleasant for buyers to look at. We want to avoid surfaces where your animal's gonna look uncomfortable or move in an uncomfortable manner. Say gravel or stone might not be so good, especially on those pads on the bottom of pigs' feet. They get a little ouchy on gravel. So if If the best place you have is a hard surface, maybe put some bedding on the ground, some shavings, to keep your livestock comfortable and the setting attractive. But you can see some differences in these photos that we've shared. You've got here the sturrox being presented and with a really bright, clean, attractive background. It sets the hog off, doesn't take anything away from the hog, versus this crossbred here in the middle that's just kind of being shot from the top down in a pen that's not been cleaned. There's some distractions in the background with other pigs and pen panels. And then we've got a lamb over here on the right-hand side. The lamb is set up properly. It's tracking uphill. It looks comfortable, but there's some things going on again in the background. So you need to be thinking about those kinds of things as you plan for these photos. It's not something you can just go out and shoot in 30 seconds and walk away from. So you want an open background or a solid backdrop. Position livestock as you would in the show ring on side view. Look and try to find an area that has livestock posed so that they're headed uphill. So we don't have a lot of elevation or a lot of slope typically in Delaware, but you want to avoid ditches and swales and holes and things like that. And you can see a real difference here in these two heifers, how they look. The one on the left is positioned so her feet are in a hole, she's going downhill, versus this heifer on the right that's positioned quite nicely. The other thing that we want to pay attention to is try, if we can, you can see the difference in the rear leg position on these two heifers. And so she looks a little more attractive there with that kind of leg spacing. So when we take our videos, those video clips, the flatter the surface, the better, again. So we want the animal to track and move freely. Make sure that your livestock are comfortable with the area they're in, that it's something that's familiar to them. So take them there if it's a certain area of your yard. Maybe it's somewhere that you might walk them a few times ahead of time. If it's not somewhere that they're used to being, practice a few times before you take the actual pictures. You want to make sure that they're clean and free of manure, dirt, and debris. And the same goes for yourself. You should be dressed as if you are going in the show ring. So, you know, you certainly, I think, want to fit the animal out. You don't want to just pull them out of the pen and take some photos of them. So wash them, clip them as you would for a show. The better they look, the better the picture is going to turn out, the better representation you're going to make for yourself and your project animal. You want to look just as if you're in the show ring. So you don't want to take pictures of your goats or your lambs standing on a fitting stand. You don't want to take pictures of your steers in the chute. They should not be in those types of restraints for these photos. And you also want to make sure that you're keeping all 4 feet on the ground for your sheep and goats. So if you're trying to brace them and set them up, try to keep all those front feet on the ground and don't be hanging them by their necks for those photos. Think about angles and lighting. Lighting's really important. You know, you get 3 photos per animal, I believe. So you want to offer multiple views, but you also want to highlight the positive features of your livestock. One of the advantages of putting this auction online is we could potentially bring in new buyers that wouldn't otherwise buy because they don't get to see our livestock at our auction. And so there might be people searching out females for breeding from our auction offerings. So, you know, you really want to highlight the positive features of these animals. You need to think about the distance from your animal to whoever's taking the photo or the video. So you want to be a similar distance from the camera as if you were showing. So if you're too far or too close, you can't see the animal really well. Your photographer shouldn't cut off feet or cut off heads. And the other helpful hint is with cell phones, don't zoom in, because if you zoom in, the image that you submit, the quality of that image will be diminished. You get much more pixelation to that image if you're zooming in versus having your photographer just simply step closer a little bit. And you can see the difference in the quality of these 2 images. One, the photographer walked into the proper distance with this heifer, and then on this lamb, it's been zoomed in and it's a much less crisp and desirable image. Some of the different pictures that you might consider submitting are some different shots. So you have 3 photos that you can submit. You might consider a side profile, a front view, and a rear view. And so a rear view should be slightly looking down, especially if we're not doing a top view at all. If you're doing a profile shot, and especially with our smaller livestock, make sure that your photographer isn't looking down on those livestock. So try to get a little bit more on level, especially if your photographer is a bit taller. Try to set your animals so they're running uphill. Again, they don't look attractive if their front end is running downhill or standing in a hole. And have them just slightly turned away on that side profile, so you can get a better feel for muscle shape and dimension, and your animal doesn't look quite so flat. Awkward poses lead to awkward photos, so make sure that you're comfortable. Make sure you're setting your animal up in a way that they're comfortable. Their feet should be set on the corners of their bodies. Don't overstretch them. Don't let their heads hang. The picture side, again, slightly setting that rear leg off just a bit so you can see that they have 2 rear legs. And make sure to get your animal's attention. Don't let them be lazy, twisting their heads around. And that can sometimes be the most challenging part about it. So the more natural they are, the better the picture. A couple things about hogs: they might need something, as we've seen post-show, to entice them to keep their heads up. So we can try elevated feed pans. That's probably the easiest thing to do. And then we can move on to things like sticks, pipes, or holding a broom out in front of them even. They have a natural inquisitive nature, and so they'll reach for that broom and they'll look a little better on that side profile shot. And then sometimes a pump sprayer or even a crinkly water bottle will attract them to keep their heads up and still long enough. So if you're picturing hogs, you might actually need the exhibitor, the photographer, and someone to help you show off the hog as well. So you'll need someone to help attract ears forward and keep them looking and keep them attentive. Use as much natural lighting as possible. So do not take pictures in the barn or in your sheds unless you have some great backdrop with really good lighting. Another hint about the sun, make sure the sun is to your photographer's back. So if the sun is behind the exhibitor, there'll be more of a silhouette and maybe a hazy glare to your photo that will make it harder to see. Direct light is better. It shows more detail and can highlight more of your animal's muscle expression. Definitely pay attention to shadows. I've seen photos before submitted of animals for different things where the photographer's shadow actually is laying over the animal and can be seen in the photo. So we don't want to see other people's shadows in your photos that you submit. And then just a little bit more on videos. You know, you follow a lot of the same rules about backdrop and distractions and that type of thing. But also you want to make sure that your video footage is level so that smartphone isn't moving up and down during your filming. So that's when that tripod does come in handy as well. Try to let your animals come from several different angles in that video submission so that you can see them coming from the side, walking away, and then maybe coming back towards the photographer. You want to make sure that you have enough area that that animal can walk and move freely and that they're not crowded or bunched up as they're trying to move around for that filming. First and last impressions are really important. And really, this is a great lesson in marketing your animal. It's another aspect of this project. Just a couple notes about hogs. Make sure you're presenting them as if you were driving them for a judge in a video. So you want your videographer to stay in one place. You want to make those long sort of arching, we call them rainbows here at home, sort of in front of the videographer so that hog is moving around the person holding the camera. So that person holding the camera will actually, in a way, be positioned just like a judge would be in the ring. And then some final thoughts about photoing. We just all have different strengths. We have different situations. So you got to work with what you have, but really take the time to pay attention to the details. So this is just like stepping into the auction ring or an interview for something, you have one chance for your first impression. So take some pride in your project, show it, and show yourself at your best. And with that, I see we have some questions that have come in. Let me see if I can pull those up here. I'm going to stop my share for the moment.
Susan, while you're looking at those questions,
Yep.
I think another important thing about videos is that your video should probably be about 30 to 60 seconds. You don't want a super long video, and you want to make sure you still show off your animal too.
I see. These are more questions that look like they're related more to the logistics of the auction, and Kristen has answered these. So, and we'll talk about some of these a little bit more in what we're going to talk about right now, which is how we're going to work on recruiting buyers. So let me find where I was here. I shouldn't have stopped my screen share. So we're going to talk just a little bit about recruiting auction buyers, because really, as exhibitors, we have a responsibility to assist in this process. So understand that it is not the auction's responsibility or the state fair's responsibility to recruit buyers for you. So you as exhibitors and as parents need to help recruit new buyers and welcome back returning buyers to participate in our junior livestock auction. Eventually, if we don't recruit enough new buyers to support our sales, there may become a time where there aren't enough buyers to support the number of lots that we have in our auction. The big thing this year is to make sure that we make our buyers aware of this new virtual auction format. And so Caitlin shared with you some resources that you can utilize to explain this process to your buyers. Especially this year, these cannot be last minute contacts that you make. With this new process, we are really encouraging that buyers register in advance of the junior livestock auction. So I've witnessed before exhibitors walk up to buyers an hour before the junior livestock auction in the barn and ask them to buy their animals. We cannot be that last minute this year. This needs to be a planned effort that you work for, I would say, early in July. So who should you consider as potential buyers? It really could be anybody. So neighbors, friends, relatives, professional offices, community organizations have historically been great supporters of our auction. Companies your parents might do business with, so places like feed stores, your veterinarians, car dealership, your insurance company, grocery stores, contractors, really anyone, because not only can they possibly purchase a high quality animal for their freezer, but it can also serve as advertisement and promotion for their own businesses. Or maybe they just want to support you as an exhibitor. So, you know, think broadly. Don't just rely on the list of buyers from previous years. We really need to start working to expand the number of buyers that come and support our auction. So what's a buyer letter? This is something that all of our exhibitors should be sending. So it's a letter that an exhibitor sends, and it explains your project. It invites potential buyers to come to the fair or participate in the junior livestock auction. Our buyers typically pay more than fair market value. So buyers that are happy with the letters they receive are more likely to come back and participate in the future. This letter lets them know that you have raised an animal or multiple animals, that you're exhibiting it at the fair, and that you're trying to sell it. And this is just an example of a handwritten buyer letter here on the right. So what type of information should you be including in these buyer letters? They should be personalized. They should never be as generic as "dear buyer" or "dear potential buyer." That can be offensive to people because they feel like they aren't unique, they aren't special. You have sent out just a form letter if it's that generic. These letters should introduce you. So it should include your name, your age, Sometimes your town is important because sometimes there are certain buyers or certain organizations that want to support the auction, and they want to support a child from a specific county or a specific town or even a specific school district. So including those details in your buyer letters can be really important. You should mention your 4-H club or the FFA chapter if you're a member of those. The livestock you're raising, maybe how many years you've been exhibiting them. And then there may be a few other details that you wish to include, maybe what you really enjoy about your project or what keeps you doing this project year after year. The details are really important. So the date, the times, and the places for both the fair and the sale, because maybe your buyer might want to come watch you, show your animal. You should thank them if they're a previous buyer. Some buyers prefer handwritten letters. It's that personal touch. Some prefer typed as long as it isn't just a photocopied form letter. Make sure that you're signing those letters personally, not a photocopied signature. And then be sure to include pictures of you and your animal. It takes a little bit more planning and a little bit more thought to do that, but it really resonates with a lot of buyers, and it's something that they often mention if they've received those photos in the past. Other important information that you should include, especially this year. So process information. And what I mean by process information is how is the auction going to work? So that is that sheet that Caitlin's provided that can be downloaded from the State Fair Livestock Auction website. So that's the sheet that explains to them how to bid, how to register as a buyer, that animals are being sold by the head this year and not by the pound. And then it will also explain to them options for what to do with the animal once it's purchased. And just like the 4-H Foundation has put out there in multiple letters, just like the Junior Livestock Auction Committee at the State Fair, and just like buyers have told us in the past, we do not feel that donating back to the exhibitor is an appropriate option to offer or request of a buyer. They're already paying you a premium price for that animal, and so to be very direct and ask for that animal back can be a bit offensive to some buyers because they are already paying a higher price than normal, and being asked for that animal back can be often awkward. If that is something that you and your buyers have done in the past, and they're comfortable with that, then those buyers would select the option that they're going to take the animal when they register on that auction website this summer for State Fair virtual auction. And then you and they, as your buyer, will work that out between yourselves. But we are not going to offer that as an option for selecting where that animal is going to go after a buyer acquires it or is the winning bidder on it. How to reach you or your parents for additional questions. So that could be even asking if you've made the sale. And we understand that not everyone makes the auction, but you still need to put some energy and effort into recruiting new buyers. An auction leaflet or flyer, a lot of times in the past, there have been brochures or pamphlets available about the Junior Livestock Auction at the State Fair. You can get those from the office and include those in your letters. And then even you could consider going as far as providing a gate admission ticket. You know, our family has done that for many years with our repeat buyers. When we send our buyer letter, we invite them to come to the fair and we send them a complimentary gate admission ticket. Yes, it costs money, but it's a small investment for what they have done or given to us, to our exhibitors and our family. Things you should not include in your buyer letters: asking for a certain price or a certain bid, asking for sponsorships, asking for the animal to be donated back to you. If a buyer wants to do that, they should be doing that on their own, not because they're feeling obligated because a child has made that request. Talking about family debt or financial hardship to try to pressure a buyer into making a purchase. Stating buy my animal or we won't do business with you anymore, those types of things. Talking about what you will use the money for. I think that is a more appropriate mention in your thank you letters after your buyers have made their purchase and their support of you. And the other no-no is writing group letters. So sending a form letter that will cover multiple exhibitors with one letter. Each exhibitor really should be writing their own unique letters and sending them on their own behalf, even if that means that one buyer gets 2 separate letters, one from each sibling. Some final thoughts about this. It's a business transaction. It may be your very first as a junior livestock exhibitor. And so there's obligations on both sides. You need to make these buyer letters personal, build relationships with your buyer. Some buyers can last your entire showing career. And I was a fortunate person myself as a junior livestock exhibitor. I had 2 or 3 buyers that supported me throughout my entire 4-H career. They were very generous to me, but I built a personal relationship with them. I would visit them. I would talk to them. I didn't just send them a letter at fair or sale time asking for them to buy their animal. So again, just like so many other things in life, it's about the relationships that you build with people. And always keep in mind, you are advertising yourself, your family, your 4-H club or your FFA chapter, your project, and your work in this. So with that, Kristen, I am going to stop my screen share and I am going to turn this over to you.
There are 2 questions in the chat box. And so,
okay.
Caitlin, if exhibitors enter their photos and something's wrong with them, will anyone reach out to them? That was from Austin. So if there's something wrong with the photo, would someone let them know? That's the question.
So I can let Caitlin take this too, but my first instinct is going to say if there's a technology issue with transferring the image, I think the office will let you know. If there's an issue with how you're presenting your animal or yourself, I don't think that's up to us to critique and follow up with all of our exhibitors on that. But Caitlin, you might want to give an answer to that as well.
You're muted, Caitlin. You're still muted.
Unmute.
There you go.
Thank you. I think your answer was perfect. I can see if you maybe attempted to upload and didn't actually attach that photo. So at that case, I probably would reach out and say, hey, you might not have hit that gray upload button. You might want to go back in and try to upload your animal. But we won't be reaching out, as she said, just because we don't think the way your picture looks as presentable, or if you don't upload. We will only reach out if I see that you've attempted to upload and there's actually nothing attached.
Thank you. And then Keith had a question about the minimum bids. Susan, I don't know if you had a chance to read that, how we arrived at the minimum bids and the concern about the beef being quite low.
Yeah, I'm reading that now, and I don't know if we have the opportunity to take that back to the committee at this point. I can certainly ask that, Keith. I understand what you're saying. There seemed to be some conviction among auction committee members that nothing would sell at the minimum bids, but again, I guess we can't promise that. So I don't know. I can certainly take that concern back to the chairman of the committee and see if that can be reevaluated, because I do hear what you're saying and understand what you're saying. So none of us here have the power to make that decision on our own.
Can you see the document? I'm sorry. Can you see my Word document? Okay.
I can.
Okay, so I'm just going to take a couple quick minutes and just cover a few important things for the buyback. So this would be the animals that would be donated to the 4-H and FFA foundations. And we typically get about 60% of the animals that run through the auction donated back. So we do handle quite a few animals through this process. And so we wanted to make sure we shared that process with all of you, so you knew what the process was to get those animals back. Again, this is just for those animals donated to the foundation. So if a buyer purchases an animal and chooses to take it and do something else with it, then obviously we don't have any control over that. So we will be sharing this document through the email list of junior exhibitors, but we were waiting because we didn't want to overwhelm people with multiple things at one time. So this document will be shared through 4-H leaders, FFA teachers, through the fair, etc. And so I'm going to explain a couple things. One, the timetable. Two, how to process a bid for buyback, and then 3, where you can find the information out. So those are the 3 things that I'm just going to talk quickly about here today. So there's a lot of detail in the policy letter. I'm going to go through to the second page, which is kind of like a flyer format. I'm the contact person for the buyback, and so if you have any questions related to the buyback, please call me on my cell phone. That's usually the easiest way to take care of any questions. And you can reach me directly. And so that would be listed here on this flyer. There's a couple ways to find the information on what animals have been donated back. And I'll be sharing a link, and we'll also be posting a QR code. So for those of you on your smartphones or that sort of thing, you can take a picture of the QR code, and that'll take you to the website where we're gonna post the available animals, or you can follow through with a link, okay? There are 2 here because the buyback will happen the day after the livestock auction. So the virtual auction is on Friday. And once that auction closes on Friday, the buybacks will start Saturday morning, okay? And so we know the closeout process could take several hours because of the 1 minute and 30 seconds delay on each animal that could potentially be extended. Then that gives us time to get whatever animals are donated back into a list for Saturday morning. So I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a second. Let me just do that now. So when you follow the link to the exhibitors, it will open you up to this website. And exhibitors only have the option to buy back their animals between 9 and 11 a.m. on Saturday, August 1st. So that's the day following the livestock auction. We will be posting the goats that are available, that are owned now by 4-H Foundation and FFA Foundation. The animals will be posted here: goats, hogs, sheep, and cattle. We have posted here, this is where you'll find the prices for the buyback prices that the foundation sets. Here's the times. Saturday, August 1st, exhibitors always have the first option to buy their animals back between 9 and 11 a.m. It is really important that you do not miss this time. This is so time sensitive because all the animals that are left will go up for public bid as of noon. And so it is extremely important that if you're interested in getting your animal back, you submit an email, and I'll talk about that in a second. So it's really important. I would suggest you put a calendar meeting on your calendar, or set an alarm on your phone, or whatever you need to do, because if you're like me in this day and age, if you're not, you get sidetracked, you're doing lots of different things, and then you forget that that's come up. So 9 to 11, exhibitors only have the first option to buy back their animals. There's some information I need to know, and that's explained right there. The lot number, what the exhibitor is, who's the contact name. And so what happens is when you email this information to me, I will send a reply that says, thank you, I've received it, that sort of thing. This is how much it is with the prices, and how are you going to pay? That's what I want to know, because I want to know, are you going to pay in person or are you going to mail it in? So this site here really gives you all the details. Again, it reiterates the time. The prices are over here. Purchases are only received by email. Please don't text me. We need one location to collect all the information, and so email is the only way that will accept bids. You'll make checks payable to the foundation, or you can pay in cash, and I will be on site in the center concourse area for a period of time if you wanted to pay in person, or you would just mail me a check. And so payable to the correct foundation, and then you would mail it to my address. And so I'll be collecting the buyback monies like I normally do. And again, all this is on Saturday. And so all the information will be posted here. As exhibitors come and purchase their own animals, this will be updated close to real time. And then after 11 o'clock, this site will come down. And the other site that's available is now open to the public. And so animals that are left would be posted here. And this email bid system is basically the same as it was run before, where it was sealed bid. You just email what your bid is with this information down here, the lot number, the exhibitor name, the name of the bidder, your mailing address, your cell phone number, and then are you going to pay in person, or are you going to mail it in, and then what's your bid, the bid that you're willing to pay. And so at 3 o'clock, all the bids are open, and I will call the winning bidders and say, you've won your animal, this is how much you owe, and just reconfirm some of those details. The prices do change. The prices do change a little bit with the public sale. And so those prices would be listed here for the public sale. The prices are a little bit cheaper, and there's just one price per species. Again, to place a bid, email your bid information to my email address. You can pay in person, or you can mail the payment in. So I think it's pretty straightforward. The key is to know the date, the times, where to find the information, and then how to submit the bid. But as always, my cell phone number is on all these forms and pages. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call, but make sure that you're reading all the information first. I think, it is all there. And make sure you scroll, because once we list like the goats and the hogs, it's possible that when you get to this page, you may not see everything. So like this column here, so you'll want to make sure that you scroll down. Any questions on the buyback? So 9 to 11 on Saturday, August 1st is for exhibitors only, similar to how we did it, on normal years. And then 12 to 3 is going to be open to the public.
Any questions for Kristen about that process? And I just want to reiterate that being timely this year is going to be critical in all aspects, from meeting your deadline for your photos for the auction on July 10th to making your decisions about buyback in a timely manner, and making that connection, sending that email to Kristen. Thank you, and we hope to see you at the fair. Make sure you get your photos in by July 10th.